Go to Markie here in the mobile studio. Just let me get a bit more comfortable. Can't hold that position very comfortably. So it's a lovely evening, nice cloud formations and a rising moon. Let me just show you the rising moon. There you go. So I want to talk about a novel, and when I do reviews, which is a kind of a review, I used to use the title Early's Late Reviews, because Early is my surname, and I'm usually late to the table because I'm usually talking about a novel or a film that's been around for ages and I've just got around to watching or reading. But I'm actually thinking of changing it to Markie's Monotropic Musings wow, when it's about movies I can say movies and get that alliteration. When it's novels I can't, but Markie's Monotropic Musings. I've talked a bit about what monotropism is in other videos, not a lot, I've just touched on it. I did a questionnaire the other day for monotropism and I'm really high apparently, which makes a lot of sense. So what and I always kind of put myself down a little bit when I do movie reviews, because there's lots of things about movies that I just don't keep in my head. Like, I'm not good at details that, you know, directors, and usually I can't remember the bloody plot of things I've watched anyway. Goes in, you know, I watch it and then the next day it's like I've not watched it. But I do like to reflect on things, and I do often zoom in on, you know, unusual details, which fits with the monotropism. So although I might not be the best person to give an overall holistic review of anything really, a novel, a movie, a TV series, music, I think I do have something interesting to say in most cases. And today I want to talk about The Shining. Now I got a bit obsessed with this. This caught my interest sort of last week when I watched a video talking about a possible thematic link between Eyes Wide Shut and The Shining. Now, of course, they're both movies made by Stanley Kubrick, who is or was an international man of mystery. You know, his movies are full of subtleties and question marks. And it's enough, you know, he's given enough for critics to talk about for forever, really, in terms of his movies. But it's one review, and I wish I could remember what it was. Otherwise, if I did, I'd link it and give the person credit. But they were talking about a possible link between those two movies, Eyes Wide Shut and The Shining, in that they both feature a masked ball, and I thought that was interesting, and it got me because I'm always intrigued by Eyes Wide Shut. It's quite a fascinating movie. So I read the novel that it's based on, which was interesting, which made a lot of sense, and it felt to me like there were themes in the movie, because the novel's not called Eyes Wide Shut. I can't remember what it's called now. Rhapsody, or The Rhapsody. And I can't remember the name of the author. I'll link that below. So I've already almost forgotten it already, having read it. And it's kind of a bit more straightforward. It's very much, the novel is that it's based on a novella. It's very much about kind of psychology. Kind of interesting from a retroactive jealousy point of view as well, actually, that it kind of doesn't really talk about retroactive jealousy, but there's kind of things that overlap a bit with retroactive jealousy, sort of certain themes. So I read that, and then I thought, wow, you know, I'm gonna read the novel of the Shining. I saw the movie a long time ago, forgotten most of it, and seen so many videos as well saying, what does this mean and what does that mean, and you know, but actually if you read the bloody novel, it explains it all. Although having said that, Kubrick you know, runs with it and changes the story quite a lot. But most of the kind of things that people ask questions about, like what's the guy in the dog costume, and how did Jack get out from being locked in the pantry and things like that, and what does it all mean? And there's sort of certain theories. One theory is that has been going around is that it's all hallucination on the part of Wendy, which is interesting. But yeah, so I read the novel. Now when I say I read the novel, what I did was I found audio versions of it on YouTube. Now really what I should have done is just gone to a proper one, but what happened was it was quite an interesting kind of journey. The first one I found was one that was supposedly narrated by Jack Nicholson, but I thought, blimey, his heart's not in this, because it was definitely his voice, but it wasn't narrated very well. So I suspect it's kind of like an AI kind of version, deep faker. Well, I don't even know what the terminology is for these things, but they've taken Jack Nicholson's voice and done something whereby it appears that he's reading the novel, but it doesn't scan properly. He puts the emphasis on the wrong words and things like that. But it was okay. It was all right. And I got quite a way into it, and so I was hooked by the story. And then at the end of it, it said, and this is just a teaser, if you want the rest, go and pay lots of money to blah, blah, blah. And I thought, well, no, I'm not paying money for a dodgy deep fake Jack Nicholson. So I looked around to see what else there was. And then there was another video of a woman who was a really good narrator, and put so much emotion into it. I was a little bit worried about her from at certain points. I thought, is she okay? She's such a good actor and put so much into it. I kind of, I wondered if, I wonder if she'd been, triggered and was actually, reliving some of her own past trauma. But then she said at the end of it, she said, oh, I've done that chapter. I probably won't do the next one. So I'm like, oh, right, okay. So she just narrated one chapter. I don't know why. And then I found another one. I'm not naming any names of these, and it was excuse me, it was a woman, and I liked her. Something very likable about her, and she's got a whole channel of narrating different books, and yeah, she had an interesting voice. It reminded me a bit of Candace Wells, that kind of drawl, and she kind of scanned perfectly, which not many people can do. Most people, when they read, they don't scan very well, but and it seemed very natural. There was a great ease about her narration. It wasn't particularly clear. It was a little bit kind of, I wouldn't say slurry, but that drawl made it a little bit unclear. And it all sounded matter of fact. So even when, so when they're talking about, some scene setting and background stuff, when they're just describing the scenery or the hotel or something like that, her tone of voice when that was happening remained unchanged when it went into a sudden kind of horror scene, and it was quite difficult to hear. I've got hearing loss as well, which doesn't help. So I found that I was listening to it in this very ho-hum way while there were it was supposed to be scary stuff going on. So I lost some of the the scariness, if you like, or the emotional impact of it through the narration. But I liked her. She kept coughing and spluttering and kind of hawking and swigging drink, and cats were going on in the background, and you could hear a washing machine and stuff like that. So I'm not saying all this to criticize the channel, because my channel's rough as old neck, my presentation, but just to give you a bit of a I suppose give me a bit of an ouch that if my some of my interpretation of the novel from what I listened to isn't on the money, it might be because because of the quality of the audio narration that sources that I use. So I should have just gone to a proper one. So there you go, lesson for me. But I like YouTube. I don't like going off YouTube. I think that's part of my autistic thing. It's like, you know, no, I don't want to, you know, go onto another platform. I want everything on YouTube. I don't know if anyone else is like that. Now you might hear some rustling. I've got some notes here. I've actually taken some notes for this. So that was the story that led to me listening and wanting to do a little bit of a mini review. I say mini review, it's probably going to be quite long, isn't it? But I'm not going to make that many points. We're going to zoom in on monotropically on a few points. Yeah, interesting. I mean, I've read Stephen King before, not for a long time. I like him as a writer. I remember reading the Stand a long time ago. I like the way he develops characters, and I like the way he does the backgrounds. Now I became aware of something with Stephen King recently. He's kind of, I think, probably on the point of being cancelled. So apparently the novel It features something like an 11-year-old girl who sexual activity with an 11-year-old. I think she's 11-year-old. She might be younger. And it's interesting because everyone talks about It, and you know, there's different film versions, aren't there? And everyone kind of, and up till now, or up till recently, nobody seems to have noticed this particular scene where this occurs. I think she has sex with all her young school friends. And suddenly people are kind of saying, what, you know, so I don't know what the ultimate outcome of that is going to be, whether Stephen King is going to be a dirty word. I haven't read it, so I'm not gonna comment. I mean, I think it's, you know, let's say this is not a good idea to feature that in your novel, but you know, there may be a context. I don't know. I can't comment intelligently if I haven't read it anyway. I mean, I've heard sections of it quoted, but I haven't had the full context. So unless I've read the novel, I'm not gonna give my opinion on that. But it's kind of concerning. Let's put it that way. You know, but beside that, I like Stephen King. So it's a long novel, and well, it's, you know, how long is long? How long is a piece of string? How long is a novel? A novel is as long as it should be, I guess. I think it's a bit too long. That didn't bother me too much, because I like his use of language, so I enjoy just listening to that. I like the way he builds up the characters and builds up the backstory. You know, I find it very entertaining. You know, he can talk about or write about kind of quite mundane things, but the way he describes the characters makes them interesting. So even if there's not that much going on, I didn't find it boring, and I quite like a slow burn. So my favorite horror movie, or one of them, is Rosemary's Baby, which is incredibly slow, and I love that. I love this slow build, where it's building mood and building atmosphere and stuff. But I think, and who am I to criticize Stephen King? But I think it could have been a bit shorter. I think it could have been maybe not quite half, but maybe perhaps a third. You know, cut out about a third of it. I think you could do, but you know, not a huge issue on my part, just a small point. Wasps feature a lot, which is interesting. Both in, so by the way, there will be spoilers here. I always forget to do the spoiler warning. Sorry about that. So they're used as metaphor, and they figure literally throughout the novel. So I thought it was interesting. It could have been called The Wasps. It's interesting it was called The Shining. the way they were playing, he was playing so much on wasps, I wouldn't have been surprised if that had been the title. Maybe it was a working title at some point. Apparently The Shining, the title, this is from Wikipedia, the title was inspired by John Lennon's song Instant Karma, where it says we all shine on. I don't know if that's true or not. You can never be entirely sure with good old Wiki, much as I like Wiki. You can never be entirely sure. Now, alcoholism is a theme. Now, I have a big part of my professional career has been in working with people who are recovering from alcoholism. And one of the things that's well known among people that work in that field is that people who are in recovery, in other words, they're not drinking, they're abstinent, they're choosing not to drink and choosing to remain alcohol free, is that sometimes a prelude to a relapse is they will start to do some of the behaviors that they used to do when they were drinking. The behaviors will return. This is written about by a number of people. It's a well attested kind of thing, and this features in the novel. However, it's kind of laid on with a shovel, really. I quite like that it was featured there. I think it's it's a very true phenomenon, I should say. But it would be nice if it had just been kind of slid in, really, not pointed out, and then it would have added a bit of depth to things. So Jack, the character, is a recovering alcoholic, and he starts to do. He gets seduced by the evil of the hotel, and it's kind of set up. It's from the very beginning that bad things happen when Jack drinks, and it's really important that he doesn't relapse. So that was interesting, and I thought there was I felt like there was a general theme which I mean, I watch a lot of Catholic exorcists on YouTube, talking about how people get possessed or obsessed, and all the different, or infested by dark forces. I mean, I've got a very open mind about such things, and I've got some of my own theories as well. But certainly what they would kind of say is, and this kind of fits with the Catholic philosophy and, well, a Christian philosophy more broadly, that the fallen angels, the demons, the devil, whatever, will try and ensnare you through your sins. And this is the thing, especially with Catholicism and the importance of confession in Catholicism, that you don't just continue on having sinned. You do something about it, and then it's washed away. And non-Catholics would just do that through prayer and asking for forgiveness and things. So it's not a purely Catholic thing, but with Catholicism and Anglicanism, actually Anglicanism has confession as well. There's a mechanism to deal with that, and what the exorcists would kind of say is that people that get possessed or end up with a house full of demons, they've invited that on some level through sin, and it's kind of interesting because the whole plot of this is that the hotel kind of plays on his, and I'd say kind of weaknesses or vulnerabilities rather than sin. Sin's a bit of a heavy pejorative word. But his history of violence and the shame that he has around that, and his history of addiction and his anger management problems, they're all weaknesses that the amorphous, kind of unnamed evil force of the Overlook Hotel seem to use to manipulate him. And it's kind of subtle. It never really kind of talks about possession. It's not like a possession movie really, but he does kind of become possessed ultimately, or certainly taken over, influenced by the evil of the hotel. And the hotel itself, this is where the novella, sorry, not novella, it's not a novella, is it? It's long. The novel differs a lot from the movie, is in the ending. I'll talk a bit about how it differs in other ways in a minute. But the in the novel, the hotel is destroyed by an exploding boiler. Now I think in America you call it a furnace. In the UK we call it a boiler. So basically the mechanism for heating, you know, the central part of the heating system. And it's set up from early on that it's well dodgy, to use a colloquialism, and that Jack, as a caretaker, has to adjust the pressure several times a day. And if he doesn't do that, there's a risk that the boiler will explode and take the hotel with it. So it's set up from the start, and that's what happens. In all the excitement, Jack forgets, Jack of trying to murder his wife and son. Jack doesn't adjust the boiler, and it blows up, and ultimately that kind of saves the day. So it's interesting that the demise of the hotel comes through its own flaw, because it's, if you think about it, how shockingly criminally irresponsible is that you have a hotel, big hotel, lots and lots of people stay there, and you've got this dodgy heating system that requires some maintenance person to fiddle about with it at least twice a day in order to stop it blowing up. And knowing that when it blows up, it will take the whole hotel and all its occupants with it. That is pretty negligent, isn't it? And it puts that in context, because it sets up the manager of the hotel as a arsehole, and that's established from the start, and a bit of a penny pincher. And well, these things have happened in real life, haven't they? Where people have neglected safety to save a few pennies, and then it's caused some major disaster that's killed lots of people. That's not that uncommon, sadly. So could say that's far-fetched, but it's probably not. But it's interesting that Jack gets corrupted through his own flaws, and the hotel gets destroyed through its own flaws, if you like, if that makes sense. Flaws, F-L-A-W-S, but maybe F-L-O-O-R-S as well. So what else? Yeah, there's in the movie there's a maze, and that features heavily. But in the novel, it's they don't talk about a maze, but there are topiary animals of various kinds, and they come to life. And that's my biggest criticism actually with the whole novel, is I don't know, that just seemed a bit twee, really. These animals, these topiary animals, coming to life and going and attacking people. I just could not buy that. I can. Well, it's all high fantasy, isn't it? High fantasy in the not in capitals. It's all make believe, and most of the supernatural things that happen in this are seldom reported, let's say. It's a horror, it's fantasy, but I just couldn't buy the topiary animals coming to life. Sorry. Or she'd cut that bit out, really, and that would have shortened it a bit, while keeping some of the interesting bits in there. So on the opposite side of the spectrum, what I did like was how Stephen King was able to write things from the perspective of a 5-year-old boy. I really like that. It kind of felt quite kind of weird. It kind of was quite regressive for me, or quite nostalgic for me. It kind of took me back to being a young boy, and how I thought about things and how I saw the world and what the world was like. Now, he didn't get it perfectly, but then he didn't have to, because the whole setup was that you know, Danny was a very special five-year-old boy, and also that he was quite precocious in some ways. So where he didn't get it quite right, he got away with it. It was quite clever. But I think he did nail a lot of things about, you know, what it's like for a 5-year-old boy really well, and I really like that. So I think we're getting near the points that I wanted to make. I suppose yeah, what differs from the novel and the film. Well, I mean, Stephen King hated the Kubrick version. They're very different people, come at things from a very different point of view. And one of the reasons that I think Stephen King was pissed off about the Kubrick movie is that it was actually quite not autobiographical, but Stephen King drew on his own experience and his own character a lot in this. I didn't know he was a recovering alcoholic. And Stephen King's also talked very openly about you know, having quite hateful thoughts towards his children when they were younger, and that he, you know, used to punish them physically, and very open about that. Jack in the novel is, you know, is a decent guy who's got an addiction. He's had an abusive background. His father in the story was also alcoholic and very violent. And Jack is very much somebody with a conscience. He's very much somebody that's done stuff through his alcoholism that he's deeply ashamed of, and he can't kind of get past it either. It kind of keeps getting brought up, or he keeps getting reminded of it in various different ways. But he's actually, you know, a decent guy who's struggling with, you know, with life and sobriety and with his career. He's very much got his challenges, but he's a decent guy. And he is a nice dad. He's, you know, he's got a really good relationship with Danny. But in the novel, he's an arsehole from the start. Sorry, in the film, he's an arsehole from the start. Which, yeah. So it was like the hotel didn't really, the evil forces of the hotel didn't really have to do too much to corrupt him. You know, that was quite easy, and he was an arsehole already. I think that's a shame. I think that's you know, I don't think that was a good call in making the movie. But then again, who am I? Because you know, it's rated as one of the best horror movies of all time. Kubrick's a genius. I think, you know, in a way, you kind of have to judge the film on its own merits and judge the novel on its own merits ultimately. Although I know for the sakes of explanation, I'm comparing the two. The other thing in the novel that's very different in the movie is that Wendy's she's cool. You know, she's very strong. She's a very strong character, and is the hero, really, if anybody is, or one of them. There's I can never remember. I can never get the name of the cook. He also is the hero. There was two heroes to save the day. It's not Hanrahan, is it? No, it's not Hanrahan. It's Hannah. Oh, I've seen this name and heard this name so many times that it never stays in my head. It's because it sounds like so many other things. Anyway, they're both kind of hero figures, but Wendy is very much up there as a hero. She's hardcore, you know. She gets seriously injured, but she still, you know, she still saves Danny. That's one of that's the kind of the main differences, really. Is Jack gets Jack is in the novel. Jack is, you know, he's got his flaws, he's got his addiction, he's got his weaknesses and his vulnerabilities, but he's likable. He's a decent guy trying to do the best thing. and sometimes he does stuff that he regrets, you know, and he hates the fact that he's got this bad temper, and but he's struggling, you know, so you're rooting for him. Whereas in the novel, he's just a bit of an asshole, really. That, you know, he just gets made more of an asshole by the hotel, but the hotel didn't actually have to work that hard to do it. Whereas in the novel, it's a big shift, you know, and it's much more like a possession of him. So what else do I need to say? That's probably it. I always forget the main point when I do these videos. Maybe I won't, because I've used notes, but I'd be interested in what you think. Have you watched the movie and read the novel, or have you just done one or t'other? What are your thoughts on it? But, you know, it's interesting, just why are people speculating so much about, oh, what does this mean and what does that mean, when it's all in the novel? Do film critics not read the novels then? It's like, no, I'm a film critic, I'm not a novel critic. I'm not going to read a novel, I'm just going to speculate. Because I've seen really good, you know, people that I respect, you know, that do movie reviews and stuff, and they're asking all these questions that are just solved if you read the novel. So there you go. Hope that was of interest, and I will be back with more videos of probably a very different nature, because we're a very diverse channel in terms of what we cover. We have one mission though, and that mission is to help people who suffer with various forms of mental illness or social issues, things like I say one mission and then I'm broadening it out, aren't I? We have a broad mission and then a more refined mission. The broader mission is to help address issues that negatively impact upon people, like all kinds of things, like domestic violence and the effects of pornography, and sexual harm, and mental illness, to name but a few. And our more refined mission is to get information about retroactive jealousy to people who are suffering from it, and many of whom don't even know it's a thing, don't even know it's got a name, and don't have the first idea of how to recover, because they haven't accessed or been able to access any good resources. So a big part of what we do is putting those good resources out there so people can get well and start the path to recovery. So just by watching any of our videos, regardless of what they're about, and they're about a whole range of things, you are helping us in, you know, with that broader mission and that very specific retroactive jealousy mission. And for that, we are extremely grateful, and we will see you soon in the next video. And of course, the more if you watch to the very end, that helps. If you subscribe, that helps. If you hit the like button, that helps. All those things. Or you can now join. You can join the channel now. I'm not sure whether I've properly set that up now, but I'm now able to do that. You can actually join. You can also join us on Patreon. There's other ways that you can help. I usually list those in the description box below. So we really appreciate any help that you can give, or sharing the video with people that you know, all that kind of stuff. So I will see you soon. Thank you for watching. As the sun goes down, we will end the video, and the sun will rise on another one very soon. Rangimarie.